Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Yu Wing. You can call me Yu Win or Win, and I'm happy to be here with you right now. I just need to take a deep breath, and I wanted to share a short practice. So sometimes I have to ask myself, what energy am I feeling? So I'll take a moment and I'll pause, I'll tune in, and then I feel a little bit restless. So the next layer that I will ask myself is this energy mine? So I just pose the question, is this restlessness mine? And then if it is mine, then I'll sort of feel a calmness. If it isn't, it'll stay the same. And then I might ask, is this somebody else's? And then if I get that sense of calm, then I feel like it's a yes. If I don't get it, then I'm still looking for answers. Sometimes this helps me because as someone who grew up fawning and responding to the dynamics in my household by trying to befriend or tend to whoever was not doing well, especially somebody in a position of power. I had to get really sensitive to what different sounds meant, what different tones meant, what certain words meant. And so I can often have difficulty discerning if I'm experiencing my energy or someone else's. And then I've also had experiences where I've felt energy that isn't contained within the physical space, but can maybe be energy that people are feeling in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world. And so if you have ever sort of been unsure or uncertain, if something you're experiencing is yours or somebody else's, this is just a quick exercise that you might put in your toolbox to be able to help you discern. And you'll probably have to figure out for yourself how you would know if it's a yes or how you know it's a no. I know, and I've learned about different clairs, Clair. Most people know clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is the ability to see. Um, to see what's going on somewhere else, to see something going on in the future. But there are also other clairs, spiritual abilities with the different senses. So this can include taste, it can include smell, it can include what you hear, it can include what you physically feel in terms of sensation, but it can also be emotions that you feel. It can be a knowing that sort of comes out of the blue. It can be touching an object and sort of receiving its energy. So there's different types of clairs if you ever want to look that up. Um, but really tapping in and getting to know how you intuit, I think, is an important piece of this whole journey. So, just something to think about. Thank you for considering this practice. And today I wanted to talk about some of the books that have impacted me on my journey. And so I think one of the first ones that I can recall is The Secret Language of Birthdays. So, as a 14-year-old, going with my parents to the local Costco, I saw this book about astrology, and essentially there's a profile for each day of the year, 365 days. And so I asked my parents for it and they bought it for me. And it's still something that I will refer to when I meet people and I find out their birthday. It's something that I've read of my own many, many times. And I can't tell if it's nurture versus nature or combination of both, because I've read it since I was 14. And so I don't know if I became what I read or if I was already that and I saw it. So that was an important book in my journey. I would also say The Little Prince is and has been an important book to me because when I read it as a freshman in high school, I think I just felt like the language and like the writing style resonated with who I was, like in my essence, like in my core. Whereas some of the other books, they kind of like I could understand the general themes or the plot, but it didn't feel familiar in the ways that things were expressed. So, as a freshman in high school, reading this helped me feel like I could be seen even if I wasn't sharing myself. I was like, oh, I found a bit of my voice in someone else's work. So that was really important for me. Reading The Alchemist in my early 20s was a big deal. And then joyfully, I want to say maybe last year or the year before, I reread it after learning more about the law of attraction, the art of allowing. So I've mentioned from Abraham through Esther Hicks. And I think 20 years ago, it made me think of dreams, even if I wasn't actively dreaming for myself. It helped me, I guess, see a story or fable, as they call it, that was memorable. And then rereading it recently, and then reading it with my mom, who listened to the audiobook in Vietnamese, different layers of special for rereading this book, but it made a lot more sense this time around, considering some of the meditations I've done to sort of visit with Source and to merge with Source. And then that gave me an idea of what it was like for the main character when he was being tested to essentially, save his life. And rereading it recently, there were so many, I guess I just felt like I was connecting the dots, especially considering the sort of 20-year gap. And then also being able to connect the dots with my mom and to be able to have this shared understanding of like the soul of the universe and like personal legends and sort of the journeys that we have to take. Um, that was quite powerful. Another book that has been instrumental recently is The Untethered Soul. And I read that after my father physically transitioned. And I think I'd read it before, but I reread it and I understood the concept of living with an open heart. Because before I let myself grieve my father's physical transition, I had learned to close my heart, especially after a breakup with someone who I thought was someone who was on track to sort of, lifetime partnership. And so, in grieving and mourning and reading this book, not only did I learn the importance of living with an open heart, I really appreciated the conversation about the question, who are you? Who am I? Right. I think it's easy for us to identify with our roles, with our relationships, with the commitments that we have. But in the book, he talks about how who we are at our essence is our consciousness, is that true self, is that essence, is that non physical that's connected to the universe, source, God, however you call it. And so that was really eye opening, especially because I read it before I met my twin or got reacquainted with my twin. So that was an important one. I've talked about radical self compassion and the rain meditation, um, just the different layers of practice. And I mean, essentially, and I think I've spoken about this in a podcast that I was a guest for. Essentially, it was the first time I heard someone give me permission to feel. So if you are not familiar with the rain meditation, um, according to Tara Brach, uh, it's an acronym. So the R stands for recognize. Recognize that you're having an experience, that you're in a certain state, you're feeling a certain emotion. The A in rain stands for allow. The I in rain stands for investigate. And then the N in rain stands for nurture. And then there's after the rain, process of integration. So going through the book, she talks about, and she has us practice the recognition piece. And then in a different meditation, she has us do the recognition and the allow. And she talks about how, for some of her students, just doing those two, or doing the first one, or doing all four, or some different order, right? Depending on the person, depending on what you're going through. You don't even have to go through all of the steps. But when I was going through the A for allow, essentially she was guiding us and saying, allow whatever state you're in, whatever emotion you're feeling, whatever inner conflict you're having, allow it to be just as it is, right? In some of the work I've done around like inner child and inner teenagers, thinking about how our different parts or even people, right? Like if you ignore them, if you dismiss them, if you suppress them, if you hide them away, they try to find a way to be heard. And so as I was recognizing some emotional state I was in, let's say grief, sadness, it was revolutionary for me to hear or to read. Just allow the grief to be, right? Like you don't have to like it, but you can allow it to be just as it is. And that had so much power for someone like me who had always felt like my emotions were bad, were wrong, were too much, um, that they didn't belong anywhere. And just to allow them, soften them, let them feel seen, and then moving into the investigative stage, they were willing to let me find out more and learn more. Whereas if I had ignored them, if I had dismissed them, if I had judged them, it I don't think I would have gotten as much insight, and I don't think I would have been able to nurture whatever I was going through. So that was a very important process and a very important book. In the last year and 10 months, I also read Ask and It Is Given. And even though the book itself, I don't remember a lot of it, I think it set the foundation for changing my mindset. And then I would, throughout the year and however many months since I've finished reading it, I would listen to videos which would help me make sense of what was in the book. So I think that's been very important in terms of helping me allow for possibilities, to believe that I do not have to be defined by circumstances or conditions or events, that I don't have to live conditionally. Another important book that I was able to read is The Mountain Is You. And I read it after I finished 101 essays. Oh, I can't remember. 101 essays that'll make you think. Both books are by Brianna Weist, and I'll make sure that I share them in the notes. But I read 101 essays, and then I read The Mountain Is You. And I just remember as I was reading it, I was like, this book is kicking my butt. And it was the the pushing to see that I have gotten in my way in some ways, and this idea around self-sabotage. And so reading it was really helpful. And then I would go on to read another book right after that. I believe it's called Liberated Love. But again, I'll share it in the notes. Um, where it was talking about codependency. And I was like floored because it was the continuation of having my butt kicked, but this time with questions and prompts. And just a lot of eye opening information in that book. And I was like, crap, like, this is what I've been doing. Um, and so that significantly changed and shifted things. And that's when I sought talk therapy and then was able to find my current therapist. And, really a lot of things that have supported me in letting go of some of those internal narrative stories, beliefs, blind spots that have been really limiting. Trying to think, there's so many good books. I think that's a good place to start. I'd love to hear what you've read that has been impactful. I'm sure that I will type all of these notes up and wish that I had shared other books. So let's just imagine that I'll do another post to share the other books some other day. Yeah. But feel free to share any books, any media, any talks that have been instrumental for you in your journey. If it's related to spirituality or not, no worries. But thanks for listening to me talk about books. I love books. I am not the best reader, I'm not an avid reader, but I've always been mesmerized by a good book. um, a used book and that smell of used book and the glue, a new book, hardcover, paperback, anything really. I have too many books and I can't let go of them. And I hope that one day I'll have a space where I can just have all of the amazing and incredible books that have been a part of my journey. So, wherever you are in the world, I really do hope that you are safe and there is ease. I'm just sending you some love. And I do hope that you know, or that someday soon you will believe that who you are, who you truly are, is worthy of love. I look forward to connecting with you next time. But until then, please take good care. Okay, bye bye.